Good Saturday morning to you all out there in Cleveland Browns land. It's Friday night here for us right now, but that's just what's going on here. Welcome into another episode of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob, Mr. Casey Kinnaman, and Nick Carnes down below. Brought to you as always by our friends over at SeatGeek. You want some tickets? There's a Creed concert going on in a couple of weeks in Cleveland. Some things like that. The Cavs are up 41 at halftime right now on their
Cavs
road.
Let him know.
What's the record, man? What's the best start the Cavs have ever had? I'm very curious about that. I'll have to.
We're here, aren't we?
Yeah, this is the best start the Cavs have ever had. I don't know what the best start for a team is in NBA history.
Though. No, I just meant for the Cavs. I didn't know if we were there yet. I couldn't.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're there. This 9-0 is the best. They just broke it. 8-0 was set in like the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So,
and all you really did was change your coach. So, anyway, so welcome in. If you want to get some tickets to the Cavs games, Browns games, any of those games, maybe a Guardians game next year. I mean, they're going to be probably pretty good. So go to SeatGeek, use our promo code Barking Browns, get $20 off that purchase. Gentlemen, how are we?
Great, man. I'm great. I'm got to be up super early in the AM, so I've got to get this brainwave cranking and be able to turn it off when this pod's over and actually go to sleep. So we'll see. That'll be a journey in itself.
I did that today, and I came home and passed out for like 3 hours, and it was wonderful. But awesome, man. I just watched that first half. I know this is a Browns show, but the Cavs are kicking ass, and they are the joy that we need in this city right now, and I love it. I love it so much for all of us.
So we talked on Tuesday about if the reset button needed to be pressed. So I think that conversation is actually going to continue next Tuesday because I don't even know that we got to the end of that conversation. So we'll probably visit it a little bit more coming up. But at the end of it, we proposed the idea of, okay, if you want to hit some sort of reset button, what we do know is they're not running this thing back exactly the way it is right now. For a lot of reasons. and or not necessarily how it is right now, but how it was going into the season with the quarterback and the setup and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So our thing was, okay, if we are suggesting change in any way, shape, and form, or not suggesting change, well, I guess it's more about the change. What would we change? Would we change the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator? What would we change? What are the key roster players that we have to have back next year? And do we make any changes to the front office? And that's what we want to do in this show. So this episode, we want to go through that. So let's start with Let's start with the biggest elephant in the room because I have seen nothing the last couple of days on Twitter but fire Andrew Berry posts. So let's start there. Casey, I'll start with you. Front office, general manager, are you making a change? If you're keeping Andrew Berry, is there something else you're doing? That kind of conversation, and then just kind of walk us through that a little bit.
GM's a little more cloudy because you it's hard to move off what you have if you don't know what's available. Mm-hmm. So who around the league are you looking at to poach to bring in to be your GM if you do move off of Andrew Berry? Because if you move off of Andrew Berry, are you going to promote from within? Probably unlikely. Catherine Reach and Glenn Cook get talked about as being candidates for other jobs elsewhere. But I don't know who the bright shining mind is around the league that you would pivot and go to. But I do think it's worth exploring. At the end of the day, I come back to with what I want to see. And I basically the way you've kind of made your bed with making these contracts the way they are, you need someone forward thinking in the cap, which Andrew Berry is. But you also need to change some approaches in your scouting department. You need to change some approaches to how you view internal talent as well. So I would keep Andrew Berry, but you have to change ancillary pieces in your scouting department, in my mind. I think that you need a pivot. And there's certain positional groups they've been really good at, and certain positional groups they just keep swinging and missing. So there needs to be a change there. But without knowing who the other GM candidates would even be, I wouldn't feel comfortable moving off Andrew Berry just for the sake of moving off Andrew Berry. for if you have someone you think could be better suited to propel this thing to the next level, I'd be all ears.
This is a hard question, man, because if you guys remember from the last episode, we left off on basically saying there's been a lot of good and there's also been a lot that's been left to be desired. And I entered the year saying this is our regime of the future. This is, they all got extended, and I really thought that they were going to last here in Cleveland. And man, that Deshaun Watson trade's gone about as bad as it can go. And so I think the question is, does Andrew Berry's other moves outweigh that move? And at this point, I lean no. So with that being said, and I just look at what they've tried to do at the quarterback position overall, and I just feel like there's been a series of missteps at this point. So I think at this point I lean towards replacement, but I don't know. Honestly, this is a tough question. It's a tough question, but I keep coming back to thinking about how the Browns spend the most money in the sport, and they're one of the worst teams in it. And I just look at, okay, you have the resources. How did you allocate them? How are they being used? And where are we now? And I just see a large mismanagement of resources because you're not the Bengals. You have the funding. You have the resources at your disposal to put a talented team out there, and we are just not seeing that right now. We got a brief glimpse, one true shining game against the Ravens, but aside from that, you've relatively been in the bottom 5 of the league in pick a category, and that's a pretty damning indictment. So I lean replacement right now.
You know what where we should have actually started? With firing the fuck out of this training staff, because my God, what is going on with the injuries?
Where'd you get out of Nyheim Hines this year?
That one's really weird because it's like, why did you open his window if he wasn't close? Like, but then again, like the amount of money you gave Nyheim Hines was very inconsequential.
It was negligible.
Yeah.
But the point is, you signed a guy who you said was coming off an ACL tear at the beginning of the previous season, right? So I know recoveries are different for everybody, but it's just an example. And I know, Jacob, you're going to dive in.
What do you put? But what? How much are you trying to put into the signing of your fourth running back, your third running?
It's not even that though. If you had a miss evaluation of where he was going to be physically, you had a miss evaluation of where all 3 of your tackles were. There's been gross misevaluations upon injuries, and it's kind of like your team doctor is like one of the leading doctors in the league. So is he being consulted on these post-surgery ramp ups?
And if a lot of that is going to what some things that Andrew Berry is saying and the things that he is doing, that's the key is who is responsible for this, because that person should be fired. And if it's because you keep skimping on training staff, which I don't think it's a matter of money, because we've seen Jimmy Haslam show us that it's not. That matters of lack of funds is usually not. But yeah, man, like it starts to come down to that. Who's hiring it? Is it Andrew Berry? Are you mixing? Because if it is, you are now mixing his moves and the mismanagement of injuries together. Mm-hmm. And then if that's the case, I'm moving on, because I'm trying to figure that part out. And I know I'm kind of pivoting. I'll get right back to Andrew Berry and the GM as a whole in a second, and the only reason I say this is I was looking at some of the Andrew Berry moves, like just in general, coming into this conversation, and people talk about, hey, they didn't do enough for the offensive line in this offseason. They did though, but more injuries came. Think about Brian Allen. Think about the Brian Allen signing. If Ethan Posick goes down and Brian Allen slides in there, Brian Allen could play some guard too. So he could have been in there while Wyatt Teller was on IR. Could be in there if Joel Bitonio is not 100%. And that's just one move. And it's a good Andrew Berry move in a sense that he brought him in, but then he never played. Hakeem Adeniji, I thought he was playing really well as a pass protector, not as a run blocker, but he was playing really well as a pass protector, and he would have been your week 1 left tackle in my mind. If he goes out there, plays really well, done. IR'd, out of here, that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And, and Jermaine Ifedi, if Jermaine Ifedi was like the 4th or 5th tackle, I'd feel pretty good about that. Not the fact that he's out there playing meaningful snaps. And I think he's better. I don't know. But, and then that comes back to, well, what the hell is going on with these injuries? Because they're decimating it. Pete Smith talks about it a lot, with him saying like his biggest issue with the offense and why he thinks the offense is so bad is because the offensive line has not been healthy at all. And that you're shuffling these guys around and doing all these things. And it's like, well, why does that keep happening? This is 2 years in a row. You know how many times, and Casey, I bet you did it too. You know how many times I wrote things about reasons why I think the Browns will still be good this year. There's no way that the injuries remain at last year's level. It's going to regress to the mean. It has to. And then it didn't. And so is that
you didn't recover from those injuries to even get to this season?
But then you added them because you added depth in Brian Allen and Adeniji and even Luke Whippler, who was already here. I know, but
when you draft Zinter, you tried to supplement it. Just
can I ask you both? Is there any team that has had a worse recovery path from last year to this year than the injuries the Browns sustained in 2023 and what they're dealing with in 2024?
You can just say on the offensive line. You don't even have to say it.
Right. But
I mean, I don't know because I'd have to research it. Go ahead.
And then the one guy who was ready was Watson. The other guys, you couldn't get the other guys back, but that guy was ready.
And he was the one. And he was the one that everybody was most concerned about.
I know. I wish he would have taken longer.
It's like, oh my God. But at a certain point, you also got to think about like a lot of these guys don't. You also got to look at okay, Jack Conklin, that extension when it happened,
yeah,
and then he's not ready for this year. And I know he then gets hurt again after the extension.
You said it then, Jacob. You said it then. When Jack got extended, you questioned it then.
Well, yeah, it was like. He still had time on his deal. It just didn't seem like it was. And then
in my mind, it was the worst non-quarterback move Barry had made.
That extension?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it was unnecessary. It was a panic move because it felt like they wanted Hudson to be that right tackle. And then when he didn't develop that, like, shit, we don't have anybody on the roster, let's extend Jack. And then
didn't they? Yeah, he was in the final year of his deal and they restructured it. And then I don't remember the timeline. Now I'm getting myself too damn confused. I'm not gonna go down that road because I think I'm fucking up. I think I have that wrong. But it's just, and then the thing, I love the Zinter pick, but you put stock in a dude coming back from a broken leg, and you can tell he just doesn't have the power right now. And it's like, okay, so now you're starting to get even more into I would not fire Andrew Berry. However, I would have a real long evaluation. There should be turn. I'm with you, Casey. I would not fire him, but there needs to be turnover in the voices that have his ear. And you need to have a talk about some of these changes with they like to take guys with character concerns. And I'm not talking about Mike Hall because nobody saw that. Everybody wants to say they saw that situation coming because there were rumors that he was immature. And it's like, well, he's 21. But there was nothing that would have suggested a domestic dispute was going to happen. But Perion Winfrey for one of them. But just, talking about there's been some character guys and some situations that they've taken too many unnecessary risks on guys like that with that or injury histories. So you got to kind of have a little bit of a change where it's like, I don't want you to completely philosophically change, because in a minute I'm going to get into the players that I would keep, and a lot of them have Andrew Berry's fingerprints all over him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I would keep him. And on Tuesday's show, I will be doing the research and bringing it with you. Everybody says he can't draft. I'm going to tell you, if he really can, I'm going to get his hit and miss rate, and I'm going to compare it to every other GM, because I'm going to tell you right now, GMs, very good GMs, hit rates is a lot lower than you think it is.
Yeah.
I just want to know, because I do agree. I know we're going to get into Andrew Berry's draft picks. I do agree that there is a lot of good there as well as some misses, but there is a lot of good. But do both of you, where are you both at on confidence level that Andrew Berry can identify and find the quarterback of the future for this franchise? Because that's my biggest question right now.
He's only tried once, because you already had Baker Mayfield,
right?
And you figured out that you didn't think he was the guy. Mm-hmm. And we can argue about that till we're blue in the face, the Baker Mayfield stuff. The guy you went and got, half the league wanted him. Half the league wanted him. 4 teams put in really good offers.
Yeah.
Actually had offers approved, not
approved by the Texans.
Through the Texans, yeah. So as soon as he picked one of those teams, and we just so happened to be the one that he picked, which fucking sucks. But you traded for a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you knew he was missing a year, but you go back and you take all the off the field stuff, and I guarantee we would have made the move too. Now, the character concerns are through the fucking roof.
And costly.
And very costly. And he costed all of that. But in terms of the football player, was he worth that swing? He was. Problem was, you didn't get that guy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons to suggest you weren't going to get that guy, but most football people, half the NFL, wanted to take that swing on that guy. They were going to do it. And that's why I say it's a monster mental. It's just the biggest failure this franchise has had in as long as I can remember. 100%. I'm with everybody on that. Not a great person in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't seem like it. All that stuff is gross, disgusting, all that crap, all that. But you really
the gross reality is, if he would have played to the level, all that shit would be swept under the rug and winning.
And that's what they thought they were getting. They thought it was going to be worth it because they thought he was going to go out there and win playoff games, and it didn't happen. So my thing is, we've only seen him take one chance in terms of like the NFL draft and going for a quarterback. That was more of a sure thing.
Which shows you that nothing's a sure thing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. But my point is, in terms of him going out and getting it, that was the most surefire thing you could do in terms of getting a franchise quarterback, is getting a guy that we've seen do it in the NFL. And it, for a million different reasons, failed. Yeah. So my thing becomes, he's got to own that. But do I trust him to make a quarterback decision? I think about the quarterbacks he's brought in that have not been him. I think about Joe Flacco. I think about Jameis Winston. I think Jameis has more good football ahead of him than what we've seen. He's one good game, one bad game. I like DTR for where you got him.
Jacoby as a stopgap.
Jacoby was great as a stopgap. Josh Dobbs he kept around and was able to turn it into value.
True.
You know, he even got some wins with PJ Walker. He hasn't found the franchise quarterback, but like, I don't think it's as big of a pit of despair letting him make the pick as some. But I mean, I've not seen him bring in a franchise quarterback. So yeah, that's concerning. Yeah, absolutely.
We just don't know. We've never seen them take that swing in the draft. Mm-hmm. They've drafted one quarterback in 5 drafts.
And so just brought in a bunch of other veterans.
Yeah, and a bunch of veterans. So
there's this part of me does really want to see Andrew Berry get that opportunity to draft a quarterback or find some solution. I'm not even sure. I'm assuming that their path has to be draft because of the contract situations and that. And so part of me wants to see him have that opportunity because I know we're going to get into all the players that he's hit on. Right. There are some nice hits. And Andrew Berry deserves credit for a lot of them. So it's not like this guy has just had a 0 hit rate or not added talent to the team. And I fully acknowledge that. It's just this albatross is over the, but it's like what I think about, in San Francisco, they take that giant swing on Trey Lance and obviously miss, but they find an answer in Brock Purdy. So it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's nearly going to be talked about how big of a miss it was on Trey Lance because they were able to find an answer.
Nobody ever talks about it.
Right.
No.
So if you are Andrew Berry and you can find an answer, I can roll with that because I do like this regime. I do.
But it is scary. I'll admit that. Like I said it on Tuesday. I'm in favor of not firing them, but there does need to be some kind of change. And I would not cry if they were fired. But with Andrew Berry, when I look at everything, and we'll get into that in a second, I think that some of the scouts and some of the unnecessary risks they take, that needs to be changed. And and going after guys and bringing in guys with injury histories and extending them, that needs to change. And if he's the one bringing in that training staff, he needs to make that change too. Because if this team could just be healthy, we would know if it's any damn good.
Right. I want to talk about one more aspect of Andrew Berry's, the way he goes his process. And this is going to sound counterintuitive, okay? He's too damn nice. He's too damn nice. He's always worried about doing right by players and like this is a cutthroat business, man. If you got a guy under contract, lean on him. If like Bill Callahan, your son's going to coach Tennessee Titans. It's a feel-good story. He gets to go with his son. You're under contract. Would you like to have Bill Callahan here right now?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't hate it.
Right. So I think that's like it sounds crazy. Be more cutthroat. Quit worrying about being publicly perceived positively. Do your job. You sign these guys to these contracts, and if you're going to hold them to their contracts, and don't worry about and then there's a line there. You don't want to piss off agents and all the stuff I get, but like it's a business, man, and you need who you need. And sometimes if someone's unhappy in their role, like look, you played hardball, David Njoku, and it paid off.
Yeah.
You wanted out, and you're like, nah, I don't think so. But we've seen it time and time again where he's got to that position, and he's kind of like acquiesced to the player's demands, or and at the time, each one of those times, it's felt like, okay, this is probably the right thing to do for the player to let OBJ go do these things. But like at the end of the day, we can't let better people out the door if you don't have someone better to replace that player. And right now, all I can wrap my head around is like, you let Bill Callahan go because it was the right thing to do, but it wasn't the right thing to do business wise. It was for the personal aspect of it, but like you let a top tier offensive line coach go, and you probably didn't anticipate all these injuries, but like I would seem to think that Bill Callahan would have a better grasp on how to play the guys that you do have right now. And he would be a phenomenal asset considering all the injuries you've had to deal with and shuffling of the deck. So,
yeah,
be a dickhead, Andrew. I need you to be a dickhead for a while.
I think in general that the biggest thing is there are some things he needs to change about the way he conducts business. Some of the unnecessary risks he takes, with character
and injury,
injury.
Yes,
injury especially,
and then trying to just do right by everybody. We love it for like guys like Nick Chubb, but like,
it's a business, man.
Look, I know. Okay, this isn't apples to apples, but the Rams started the season with more offensive line injuries than anybody, and they have found themselves right in the thick of playoff contention. And I get it. Different teams, different situations, but if you're going to be struck by all these injuries, if you're going to have these rehabs take longer than you thought, you would be far more advantaged to have a bona fide elite offensive line coach than bringing in Andy Dickerson. And I think based on the evidence we've seen, I'm not saying Andy Dickerson is a bad coach, but I'm just saying Callahan is so much more proven.
It's a bigger drop off than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And obviously if in Andy's defense, those off, you know what, you did not enter this season expecting to have these lingering issues with Conklin and with Wills and with DeJuan Jones. And you look at those three guys and you say, DeJuan came into camp obviously overweight because he was hurt and he wasn't in condition. And then, the Wills injury lingers on and off and he still missed more games. And obviously Conklin speaks for itself. So it's like, I get that. I understand that. But like, you have to find the truly good teams find ways to adapt and overcome. Like you could have declared the Rams dead on arrival with all of the guys that they lost early on. And it's like somehow, some way, they're right in the thick of it. And we saw the Browns do that just last year with Bill Callahan, with a ton of offensive line injuries. And it's like this year, you just have not been able to find a way to overcome. And really, the main thing that changed is Callahan leaving town.
I realize that this show has actually turned into an Andrew Berry breakdown. Yep. So the coaching staff and what we would do with that in general, we'll do that on Tuesday. So let's dig a little bit more into Andrew Berry and wrap this thing up. So here's what I want to do. I want to talk about Andrew Berry's draft classes just in general.
Okay.
I mean, I am glad though that we had this Andrew Berry conversation because it just makes me think like what we truly bluely need from Andrew Berry is to not do the exact same stuff he's been doing. He needs to change some things. His overall, I think, talent evaluation, I think it's pretty good because you'll look at a lot of these guys that he's taken risks on the character stuff and then have been good football players. I mean, like I come back to Perion Winfrey. Nobody thought he should be there in the 4th round. So he was like, I'm going to take a chance. I mean, he did it with DeJuan Jones. And so far that's kind of worked out for him because he had some character concerns and stuff, not on the same level, but you know, and like guys like I heard Pete say this the other day, Jacob Phillips, he drafts Jacob Phillips was a great linebacker. He got 4 season ending injuries to start his career. And I don't believe Phillips had massive injury history at LSU, but it's just something that one right there is just bad.
Total freaks. Like I'll never forget. He tore his bicep in joint practices, reaching out for a guy's jersey.
Like, and the guy just hit his arm as he went by and it ripped his bicep.
That's
so like that one, that's a little different, but it's like, I think overall the talent evaluation, let's do some of this, right? Okay. First draft, Jedrick Wills. Okay. I don't think he's as bad as some people want to say he is, but he's not a 10th overall pick. Okay. Fair. I'll take
I still don't know if he's a starting level tackle. Like, I'm not even saying like, the spikes below average are detrimental.
Yeah. Some of them are so bad.
His demeanor is such a drain.
Especially
like
this year.
Just see it. I've never seen a player look like I watched Dwayne Bowe play in a Browns uniform, and he looked like he would rather be on the field more than Jedrick Wills does sometimes. And I just feel like there's a personality trait that was missed there.
We may never hear another insult that bad in my life.
I know.
Dwayne Bowe looks like he wanted to be on the field more than Jed Wills. Damn, Nick.
That was a fucking shot.
Damn.
Also, I'm looking, and Pro Football Reference is straight up lying to me saying that Jordan Elliott went to Texas.
Okay.
That
is not true.
That's good on them.
You're looking at Jordan Elliott? Yeah, Jordan Elliott went to Texas, then went to Missouri. You mean Phillips?
No, I'm looking at Jordan Elliott and it says Texas.
Yeah, no, he went to Texas.
Yeah, but he was
he got drafted out of Missouri. He transferred from Texas to Missouri.
Yeah. It is 108.72, by the way.
That's basketball.
They're closing the gap.
They're closing it. So he goes to Jed Wells. That's a miss. Grandel Pitt, home run.
Yeah, but once again, comes right out of the gate and is injured immediately.
Yeah, but it took
a while to find out if he was.
Yeah,
and I 100% agree. Grant, I don't know. I'm not going to put Delpit on a tier that I don't think he's earned yet, but I think he's a top third of the league safety.
Yeah, and he was a second-round pick, so that's great.
Good pick.
Jordan Elliott, yeah, that kind of sucks. His first draft, not that great. Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips, we talked about Jacob Phillips. He struggled a lot while he was out there, but he also was just injured all the time. And it's like, that kind of sucks. Harrison Bryant. I think Harrison Bryant, for where he was drafted in the 4th round, has been a pretty decent tight end. He was picked 115. He was a good quality tight end for them. I don't know what he's doing right now in Vegas.
Well, he's kind of buried on the depth chart because of –
oh, shit. They've got Mayer and Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers is somehow the best tight end in football already. He's been pretty good. Yeah. Nick Harris. I think Nick Harris has been a good pick for where he was. He's a 5th-round draft pick. He's had some good play. Injured a lot.
No, I can't go there. I like the idea of Nick Harris, but every time we've put him in position to be that guy,
he's hurt.
Yeah.
It's not even just hurt. He's not big enough, dog.
No, he
gets bull rushed, and it's over. Like he can't. So I'm gonna call that one a miss. Like the guy, he's got a Bob Marley tat on his calf. I'm a fan, but I just don't think he's man enough to do the job, man.
DPJ. He was good for where he was. Kind of fell off as soon as he left Cleveland. But he was a 6th-round wide receiver, dart throw. He had some really nice moments for them.
At one point, he was on pace for 1,000 yards. Yeah. Like, we were doing that count. What was that, 22?
He was trading 23, so yeah, it was 22.
Yeah, he was. He finished with like 800-some yards for a 6th-round pick. That's pretty good.
Well, then up until 2 weeks ago, he was the only Browns receiver drafted by this regime that ever showed any development whatsoever.
Yeah, that's true. You go to 2021, Greg Newsome. We have our issues with Greg Newsome. He's a decent football player. He
would start in other places in the league. Yeah. It isn't like it's just a Cleveland thing.
Yeah, it's like he's a good football player.
Whoa.
What? Oh, It's him, not us. All right. 2nd-round picks, JOK.
Yeah, very Delpit-like. 1st-round talent that went in the 2nd round. People. Oh, I thought we had 2 Carnsies. We have 2 Carnsies. Oh, dude.
I want to kick the 2nd one.
Having some issues. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
But yeah, JOK.
Yeah, huge.
Great.
Cornerstone. Delpit. So let's keep a track like this. Cornerstones that he's drafted. We got Delpit. We got JOK. Those guys are cornerstones going forward.
Anthony Schwartz out of the league.
He's on a practice squad at Miami. What are you doing?
Is he?
They get track guys. They just like they're.
Yeah. James Hudson.
Nope.
Just a depth piece.
He's a decent depth tackle in the 4th round. And you took that guy. He had 11 starts as a tackle. He was a defensive tackle at Michigan to start his career. It's not a home run, but let's keep in mind that was a 4th-round pick. And he's given you quality snaps as a run blocker. He's been not terrible at times at a right tackle. He's not a left tackle, but he's been okay as a depth piece. And that's a 4th-round pick. Tommy Togiai sucked. That was a thing that they did.
Swing and a miss.
Tony Fields can't stay healthy. Jason Tarver loves him. Can't stay on the field. Richard LeCount was a decision.
Tony Fields is finally gone. He's no longer with the team.
Huh?
Tony Fields is finally gone. He's not.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Richard LeCount and Demetric Felton, 5th and 6th round picks. Nothing to
Felton was intriguing.
He was fun for a second.
Yeah. A cool skill set for this league and as a pass catching back out of the backfield. For whatever reason, it didn't take.
2022 comes along. You start with Martin Emerson, having a down year this year.
He's a cornerstone for me.
And he's a 3rd-round pick. You didn't have a pick in the 1st round or 2nd round. You get Alex Wright. I think Alex Wright's very good.
Not going to call him a cornerstone, but I'm writing an article right now about how the Browns finally are to a point now where they don't have to keep renting veterans to pair with Myles Garrett because of McGuire and Wright. So I think Wright's a huge plus.
That injury sucks, man. Like, I'm so pissed because
especially now that you've traded Zadarius Smith, because if you had him and Isaiah McGuire to play a bunch of snaps behind Ogbo, I would love, you know what I mean? I'd really love that. But
well, I'll tell you what, I think of that safety he has on Trevor Lawrence. Man, they get their first win of the season, right? That's big time. And you're thinking about like, oh, is this the year Alex Wright really breaks out? And I think it was. And then it just gets cut short by injury, man.
And then you get David Bell. I still have hope for David Bell.
Doesn't move the needle one way or the other. He's a depth piece.
3rd round pick.
Yeah.
Arion Winfrey and Cade York swings and misses.
You'd like a little more from a 3rd round pick than a depth piece. I'd like to go back and look
at that position. Yes, not all positions, but receivers, how deep the most drafts are.
Yeah.
And you think of some of the receivers that were taken after him in that same draft. That's when it becomes like, okay, like you could Amon-Ra St. Brown's on the board when you take Bell. Like,
so Perion Winfrey, Cade York. No, Amon-Ra St. Brown was on the board when you took Anthony Schwartz.
Okay,
yeah.
But yeah, still it's even worse.
You're not good at picking.
Was the David Bell pick, was that the Nico Collins draft?
They wanted Nico Collins and they got sniped.
I know they wanted Nico.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. They weren't even targeting Amon-Ra.
Yeah. Okay. Jerome Ford in the 5th round. I like Jerome Ford quite a bit. He's not a cornerstone or anything like that, but for a 5th round pick,
he's a contributor.
I'd resign him. I'd extend him to be my number 2.
Rotational.
I could see that.
Type guy.
Yeah.
Mike Woods, always hurt.
That sucks too, man. He showed promise.
He's around though.
Yeah.
He's on the practice squad.
Okay. Isaiah Thomas, 7th round pick. Dawson Deaton hasn't done anything, but Isaiah Thomas is he's still on a practice squad. He's in Detroit. So Detroit. Okay. So not too, but yeah, it's okay. All right, let's get into the 23 draft, which was awesome.
Well, let's just point out those first 3 drafts, he's drafted at least one cornerstone in each draft.
Yeah. And some solid role players. Okay, let's get to the 3rd one. Sad Tillman. He's looking pretty good. Let's see how this year goes.
We're having the show a month ago. We're going to be super down.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what he's shown us over the last 3 weeks. 21 catches, 255 yards, 3 touchdowns. You know, you start to feel...
He's like the number 1 fantasy wide receiver over that span, too.
Yeah.
And
since Watson hasn't been on the field, confusing, huh?
That's odd.
You could see even last year, like Flacco was trying to go to Tillman. They just were not on the same page. I don't know. I don't know.
But he was a rookie swimming in the playbook.
Yeah. But my point is, you could see that the quarterback wanted to go to him last year, and to see that progression now is very encouraging. Really like that pick.
I'm not going to talk about the other 3rd round pick.
You have to say it. You got to be fair here.
Siaki Ika. I tried to be
fair here. That's a knock, my man.
Those are 2. Him and Anthony Schwartz are just those are abominations of 3rd round picks.
I tried to tell you when he was drafted.
I know.
Well, everybody agreed with me. Nobody argued. 4th round, DeJuan Jones. If DeJuan cements himself at left tackle and plays well down the stretch, that looks really good. But either way, he's a 4th round pick and he's at least a quality depth piece.
At minimum, yes.
Same thing with Isaiah McGuire. That's where I think he is. Mm-hmm. Let's see what he does down the stretch. Let's see what he can be. But so far, looks like a quality depth rotational pass rusher.
He has, if you were to point out bright spots for this season in particular, he's among the brightest.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. DTR, I think he's a decent backup.
You know what? Okay, I want to be fair to DTR because the last time we actually saw him when he knew he was going to start, I really thought he was starting to come on versus Denver. I really did, and he beat Pittsburgh.
That last drive against Pittsburgh was an NFL drive. Like that was
right. But the other times the team has put him in a no-win situation. They're just like, oh hey, by the way, you're starting now. Like,
what are the odds of them being like, hey, you're the backup? They didn't even tell them they were starting, and then that's when the injury to Watson happens. It's like,
of course, that's how
again.
Like, I wish they'd have named him the backup sooner. That's
so that he knew.
So Watson would be gone.
I do think. I just want to say, I do think Dorian has promise. I just think he actually needs prep time.
Yeah.
Can I play devil's advocate with DTR?
Yeah.
Dude is incapable of staying healthy.
Oh no. Yeah. But that's why he's a decent backup in that.
Maybe. I don't know if he's if he's a 2 or a 3 though. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
He came in for like one rushing series for Joe Flacco and injured his hip and was done for the year.
Done for the year and done for the summer. Like he didn't like.
True.
With all those other quarterbacks, he wasn't ready to go during OTAs.
Good point.
You get to Cam Mitchell. I like Cam Mitchell. I'm very excited to see what he does down the stretch.
Me too.
I like him. And Luke Whippler. More injuries. And this starts to become like, I'm not even sure how many of these guys, like I would have to dig a little bit to see about their injury history in college because but it is what it is. And then I don't really want to touch on his draft this year just because a lot of them haven't played at all.
Can I just say I follow a bunch of other teams' fans, okay? And they talk about their practice reports, even at this point, we're at week 10 now. And they're talking about like 1 or 2 guys like having limited participation on their practice reports. And I look at the Browns, and every year it is this list, a mile long, of dudes who are injured. And I know we started the conversation with this, but why is it so different? Why is it so different? I can't. I
don't know that answer, but you need to figure it out as an organization. I don't know what that is. That's why I mentioned, that's why I talked about Andrew Berry. It's like, are these guys that like because they know way more about these prospects than we can ever hope to when they're coming out in the draft. They've got their full medical history. Things we'll never know unless that player, for whatever reason, just tells everybody, right? Like we're never going to know a lot of this stuff. So are you getting information about some of these players and just ignoring it? Because then that becomes an indictment on you. That's my issues is the character and injury concern risks that he takes. It's excessive. Like that's where I have problems. His overall drafting in free agency, I like it. I think he manages the cap really, really well. I look at the drafts and I say, you are getting good players out of the draft. You're getting a few cornerstones out of the draft.
Let's finish the draft. We have this year left.
Well, I wasn't going to do it just because of you, but anyway.
I want to keep tabs of his misses versus the cornerstones, and if those equal out, I think that it's.
And also, don't forget the undrafted free agents; those guys count.
We got to talk about the ones from last year. You've got 3 undrafted free agents on your roster. 3. You got Mahmoud Diabate, who is really looking like he might be a linebacker. I'm really excited. Cannot wait to watch him the rest of the year. Ronnie Hickman had some big moments as a rookie. And at very, very worst, I think I heard Pete Smith say this earlier. He replaces Rodney McLeod. I think he takes that role when Rodney McLeod retires. And then you got DeAnthony Bell, who I think is a fantastic special teamer. I think he's a fantastic special teams player.
And he's a good sub if Delpit has to miss any time. He does those things well down in the box.
Oh, he wants to hit you in the mouth.
Yeah.
He wants to hit you in the mouth.
It's role specific, but he's like an overhang linebacker type guy.
It was like as an undrafted free agent, you get a role player. Okay. All right. Yeah. So then you get Mike Hall, who's looked pretty good. I really like Mike Hall.
Potential cornerstone.
I think so. I think he's got that upside. Mm-hmm. You got Zach Zenner at right guard. Just doesn't look ready right now.
Yeah, I'll judge that more next year than I am this year.
We haven't seen Jamari Thrash at all. Haven't seen Nathaniel Watson. He's had some injuries. Miles Harden's had some injuries. And then Jawan Briggs is on the practice squad. Mm-hmm. Is he still on the practice squad? He's on the practice squad. Yeah,
but you might see him get time now. They've officially moved on from Quentin Jefferson. So down the stretch, they might find room for him just to see if there's a pulse there. Okay, so we've drafted 3 cornerstones in my estimation. You guys, Delpit, JOK, and Emerson. I think those are, and it's also kind of and a potential one in Hall. So that's on the defensive side of the ball.
I still think that, and it's way too early, but in terms of if we're allowing me to say potential, I want to potentially put Seth Tillman in that list too. If we're talking about potential.
Well, I'm not putting. I still got 3. I got 3.
No, I know, but you're saying we could have a fourth one, and I think you could have a fifth one if those things play out. And then the DeJuan Jones conversation is interesting too, because if he finds a spot at left tackle.
I just think that there's an disproportionate quality you're getting of defensive players to offensive players when we're looking at his draft hits.
No, you're absolutely correct.
I agree.
Because of the ones that we know right now, it's on defense. I'm looking at some of the other guys and just making sure I don't.
Those are guys you feel comfortable building around, and because you have to cycle out your cornerstones. And I don't want to put I'm not trying to say these guys are old, but like we're getting towards the end of Denzel's life cycle as a cornerstone. Now, while that's due to the concussion history, but 2-3 years from now, he's probably not going to be that guy for you, at that position.
You're going to need a cornerstone running back. You're going to need a cornerstone wide receiver, a cornerstone tight end. There's a lot of positions coming up, especially on the offensive line. You got to answer a lot of questions there as well.
Okay, so we went over how he approaches talent acquisition through the draft. We talked about the injury stuff, how he needs to change some of his hiring processes for guys who are vetting medicals and the training staff and such. But the thing that I think he is and with salary cap, obviously he's got knocking it out of the park, because most teams couldn't juggle this many high contracts. You just don't see that often. But the thing that I think he's the best at is trades.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
I agree. I think about getting value for Josh Dobbs. They didn't end up getting value for Cade York, but just the fact that they could add him back and even get a pick before he misses those kicks was awesome. I like getting a third for Amari Cooper, who really hasn't done.
You gave a fifth for.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's something I come back to when I talk about when you talk about the Zadarius Smith trade too.
No, like the Jerry Jeudy contract is still a question in my mind, but giving up they gave up a fourth and a fifth, right? Fourth and a fifth?
Sounds right. That
sounds right. So giving up a fourth and a fifth to get him and his upside makes a lot of sense to me. I like that. They gave up two thirds for Zadarius Smith?
No, it was like a fifth and a sixth swap.
Yeah.
It was a fifth and wow.
Yeah, it was not a it was
fifth 1 year and a swap next year.
And so then in return they got a fifth and they
gave up him and a seventh for a fifth next year and a sixth in 2025.
There's a ton of equal value swaps for guys that are older than when you got them, which is very encouraging. Love that.
Well, this is also what sucks in my mind is I think that he's excellent at finding value with trades, but we have never been in position at the trade deadline to be buyers. Even last year, because of all the doubt at that point in time, right when the trade deadline was, there was a lot of doubt. Flacco had not gotten here and went on the run yet. So you weren't buyers. You were in limbo. You actually sold DPJ. You weren't, you know what I mean? So you didn't even buy anyone to make that run. I just want to see that get to the trade deadline and actually be a buyer with his ability to find value in trades.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's especially tough because you look at all the picks AB has given up and you say, okay, we are acknowledging the hits that he's had and the cornerstones that he's found. And it's like, I know you can't reverse it. But it's like just thinking about the overall picture, if he has all those picks, like how many more guys do you come out with on this team? And so in his defense, now I can't defend the Watson trade, but in his defense with the assets that he has, evaluating him based on those picks and the talent that he's been able to add, I think that's encouraging. So now I know I said I lean towards firing him, but at the same time, maybe
you have a lot of reasons for both, man.
I could find optimism. Like if Andrew Berry drafts for the Browns in 2025, or 2025, I could find a lot of reason for hoping that.
He's got 11 picks. He's back in the first round. He's only made 2 first-round picks, and one of them has worked. You know?
He hasn't made very many second round picks.
Only made 2, and they're both good. They're both cornerstones.
They're both cornerstones, yeah.
Which is like, damn it. That would have been great if we had some second.
Doing this exercise, though, I think they definitely need to revise how they scout their offensive stuff, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're not getting enough. You're not getting enough.
I think the biggest thing I'm curious about is, like, what is the next tight end you draft? Because I think that is the position we all expected them to address, and they haven't. And it's David Njoku and Jordan Akins, and that's I need to see. Maybe we need to see more. Maybe I leave this conversation saying we need to see more.
Hot diggity damn! It's a stacked tight end class. Stacked tight end class. It's not the running back class, because that's running back classes.
I just started digging into the Iowa running back. I think his name's is it Caleb? Caleb
Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, Caleb Johnson. Just started digging in there. There's a lot of running backs to like, man.
It's like Ashton Genty, like I would do nasty things to put him in Cleveland. Especially if you kept Nick Chubb, because I think Ashton Genty is got a lot of Nick Chubb in his game.
Right.
He's not making it out of the first.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm very aware.
We're not the team for that.
No, I don't. I beg to differ.
So maybe
you think there's no way they draft. Oh, you want to bet whatever? I will bet you whatever right now. The Browns don't draft Genty in the first round.
Well, I have no idea what they're going to do in free agency as they get closer, so I can't make that bet right now.
Dude,
but I don't think the chances.
And both know they're not taking a running back with their first pick.
How do you know he's only ever made 2 first-round picks?
And he got a cornerback and a left tackle.
Yeah, and he paid a lot of money to a running back when they weren't supposed to pay running backs.
Yeah. There's a reason you're not making the bet, Jacob, because you know they're not. He's going to be a Dallas Cowboy.
It's not a zero. If Dallas is on the clock and he's on the board,
That's what I'm saying. He's just not. It
just depends on where they're.
Genty he looks to be generational, which is a word that gets thrown around a lot. But when you watch the kid play, it's like a video game.
You're like, what are you doing? There's this play Corey Kinnan posted yesterday on Twitter or today where like he runs into a crowd and I swear like almost all 22 players are right there. And all of a sudden you just see him sneak out and just take off. And I'm like,
guys just like fall at his feet. It's crazy.
He's like a pinball. He's like
his balance is unlike anything.
Phenomenal contact balance.
I've never seen anything like it in a college running back. Like
just wherever.
We're seeing it throughout the skill positions in college, though. The body control of these young receivers, it's like they're aliens now. They are literally aliens.
You want to see body control? Go watch Tyler Warren.
I'll tell you what, you watched. I know they didn't win yesterday, but you watched what Jamar Chase did to the Ravens yesterday, and it's just like thinking about having a receiver like that on your team that can just absolutely dominate.
I think that's a great spot to end this because we're still going.
I do.
Yeah.
I do too. This has been a very interesting conversation about Andrew Berry and the future of the Cleveland Browns. Thank you to everybody for being here. We love you. If you click that subscribe button, we'll love you even more. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. That's Casey. Go Browns.
I'm just kidding. I'm not frozen.